Hi, this is Kathy with City Farmhouse Studio. I'm excited to share with you today the Crochet Simple Steps Fingerless Gloves pattern. This pattern for the fingerless mitts is built off of the Simple Steps scarf and head warmer, just taking what we've learned in those two patterns and building on step by step, getting you more details. The links to the pattern can be found in the description below. For this project, I used this I Love This yarn from Hobby Lobby. A 5-ounce skein that is also 142 grams, has 252 yards, 230 meters, and it is a category 4 medium yarn. It is 97% acrylic, 3% viscose. Now, if you do not have a Hobby Lobby around you, I've also listed down below in the patterns some other options that I know of that would be great substitutes. Along with the yarn, you are going to need a crochet hook, and I am using a crochet hook I or 9. It is also sometimes referred to as a 5.5 millimeter. What's new on this pattern is that there are multiple sizes for these fingerless gloves, from child, youth, small adult, a medium adult, and large adult. There is a measurement for the palm circumference, and that is what will go around this size. With them not being full mitts, we don't need to worry about the length as much. It may just fall a little bit more up or down on your knuckles, but that's fine. Again, the gauge, 16 stitches of 18 rows of single crochet. So that would be measuring this portion, and you need to get that gauge fairly correct. Otherwise, it may, whatever size you make, may be too small or too big if that gauge is off by too much. All right, so you'll see the 5 sizes. You need to find your measurement and mark down which location in that row of numbers is for your size. And as we're talking about the numbers throughout the pattern, you're referencing that number in that pattern location. So I'm going to make a small adult size, and that is the 3rd number in, or the 2nd one in the parentheses. So palm circumference around is 7 inches. So to begin, we're going to start with the chain, and it's going to be one of these rows here, what we seam into, and we're going to make this band for the cuff, and we're working in this direction. So we're making back and forth rows this way. Once we get our full length around, we're going to pick up stitches and work back and forth these single crochet rows until we get the top. There's a row of double crochets. At the end is whenever we join what is a flat panel down, and then from the bottom where we started our chain edge, we're going to join up, and that creates the opening for our thumb, which we'll pick up and do some more double crochets. So knowing that off of this beginning chain I'm going to seam up this amount, I want to leave a good amount of yarn before my slip knot, which is what I'm going to use to start my chain. I want a good amount of yarn to use then for the seaming bit, and that way I don't have to attach another piece of yarn, and I don't have to have those many more ends to weave in at the very end. So I have my crochet hook, and I'm going to leave about 2 feet of yarn, just a good amount of yarn, and then I'm going to make my slip knot. And to make a slip knot, so I have the yarn going to the skein at the top, I'm going to pull that and loop it over the tail, insert my hook and pull that through the loop, and when you pull that tight, you have your slip knot. And we're ready to make our beginning chain, which is pulling a loop through the loops. Now the smaller child and youth sizes only make 6 chains. But I'm making a size, and all the adult sizes make 8. And that's because all the cuff sizes have the same, for those child sizes, have one set of band thickness, and the adults have a second band thickness. So now I'm at row 1. I have my 8 chains. So row 1, it says starting in the second chain from the hook. So here's the first chain from the hook, my second chain. I'm going to half double crochet in each chain of the foundation chain. So I'm going to wrap my hook, move that out of the way so you can see, wrap my hook, insert it in one of the loops of that second chain from the end, pull a loop up, so now there's 3 loops on my hook, and pull through all 3. And I'm going to do that in each of those foundation chains. And there we go. So at the very end, it gives you a count of stitches in the row. So for the adult sizes, it's 7. For the children's sizes, it's 5. So here's that turning chain. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I have all the stitches I need for the foundation chain. That foundation chain, so I have all the stitches I need for row 1. Row 2 is very similar. We're going to chain 1 and turn. And instead of just going through both of the stitches like we would for a typical stitch, we're going to wrap, and we're going to make a half double crochet in the back of the loop. So you can see I'm just going into that stitch on the back side that faces away from me, pulling up a loop and going through all 3. So here's the top of the loop. I'm going to go into that back side of the loop, pull a loop up, go through all 3. And I'm going to do that for each of the stitches of the row. Not increasing or decreasing, so whatever you had on row 1, you will have the same number of stitches for row 2. And as we were doing that through the back loop, you can see it made this nice little ribbed stitch that looks really, really pretty. Now, below row 2, once we finish that row, it says to repeat the row 2 for an additional so many times. Now remember, as you're counting, you already have done 2 rows. So if for size small, I have to complete 20 rows, I need to complete 22 total of these rows. So again, I'm going to chain 1 and turn, wrap my hook and insert into the back loop away from me, and pull 1 up through. And continue making these loops, the half double crochets in the back loop. Came to the end, so chain 1 and turn, and again through the back loop. And you can already start to see how it's starting to make that rib banding on the cuff. It is for both sides. Chain 1 and turn. So I will continue doing just exactly this until I have the rows needed for my size. So there I've completed the 22 rows, the additional 20 of the half double crochets for my cuff. With these ribbings, it really makes it easy to count your rows. So at the bottom, I just looked at where that first kind of rib is. So that was my first row, that was my second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and then I counted by twos, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and 22 up at the top. So once you finish your rows, for the cuff, we're ready to begin that body portion, that main glove portion in single crochets. And this is what's going to go from the bottom of the palm up to where we start our double crochets that go around the very top. So again, we're just going to chain one and turn so that we can work across this long edge of the cuff. And it says to single crochet so many stitches evenly across. Now, all the single crochet numbers for each size is more than what there were rows before. So it's kind of a, you can't do 1 in each row or 2 in each row or any of that ratio. So what I do is just kind of visually half the cuff, half the cuff again in the middle, and kind of put there. And I know 1/4 of my stitches need to fall within this amount of distance. So for the adult size, I need to do 28 total single crochets across. Half of that would be 14, so half of that would be 7. So I know I need to fit 7 single crochets within this amount. So I'm just going to go in between kind of that edge spot, pull a loop up, and pull through the loop on my hook. And go through the next spot, pull a loop up, a loop through. So that's 2. And sometimes you need to go through and see how they were laying. Did you get them too tight? Are they too far apart? And work around 2, 4, 5. So again, I'm going to double and half. So I may have these a bit too close together. We'll see as I get to my half if I can fit 14 decently within this full spot. So just again, I have a few more. 6, 8, 10, 11. 12, 13, and 14. I think it will be just fine. If it wasn't, I would undo a few and squeeze them in a little bit more. And now I have the same 14 I need to fit in along this edge. All right, so there's 28 along that top cuff. Sometimes it takes you 1 try and sometimes it takes you 5. It just all depends on the day, for me at least. So now that we have that all set across the cuff length, we're ready for row 2. And it is a chain 1 and turn, so we're going to keep working back and forth. And all it is single crocheting in each of these stitches that we just created across the cuff. And we repeat the rows. So it's single crochet and single crochets, no increases or decreases for a set number of rows. Again, in the instructions, it says to repeat row 2 for so many times, for an additional amount of times. And you need to remember that when you're counting, you will have 2 already completed. So that number plus 2 is the total number of single crochet rows that you will need to complete for your size of fingerless gloves. So when you get down to the end, you can kind of see where it starts making that corner. So work there, but then also just to double check, go ahead and count your number of single crochets. Just to confirm that you have not added or missed any stitches, because that would change the width of the glove. And then to repeat, chain 1 and turn, and single crochet back. So fairly straightforward. You just keep doing this until you have the length needed, those number of rows. So once you've completed all the necessary rows for single crochet, and to count all your rows, what I do is I count kind of these little bite marks in each of the stitches. And going up, I can count. Here's 1 row, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so far up. Those little bites into those stitches are where you've worked your stitch into the loops. So that's a way you can really start to see where the bottom of one loop is, where the top of the other, and so forth. So I've finished all my rows, and now I am to the last row of the glove portion, and it is a chain 2 and turn. And for double crochets, which this last row will be, this chain 2 gets us to the height of the double crochet. Now with the single crochets and the half double crochets, this turning chain does not count as a stitch, but for double crochets it does. So I'm going to wrap my hook for a double crochet, and instead of going into this first stitch like we normally would, I'm going to go into the second stitch, because the chain again is going to act as my first stitch. So I'm going to go into the second, pull a loop up, go through 2 loops on the hook, go through the last 2, wrap your hook, insert, pull 1 loop up, go through 2 on your hook, go through 2 on your hook, and just continue making these double crochets in each of the stitches following in the previous row until we get to the end. And then once we get to the end of the row, I'm going to be using this yarn to seam down to start the thumb opening, but I first want to seam the bottom up. So I'm just going to pull a large enough loop and make sure my yarn tail won't pull out so that I can work on the other end. So now we're going to fold this to where, see this edging, we want to make sure there's a big enough opening so whenever we seam we get that detail on the top, and that those other bandings for the cuff will be in the center. Now I'm going to do what is called a zipper join. You can just go ahead and seam it up. You would have a different appearance, but I prefer a zipper join. I'm going to create a slip knot close to that beginning knot. Okay, and I'm going to pull that tail to lay it kind of on the inside of my glove. And then we want to find the top of our stitch. So it was a half double crochet, so that's the loop that we get by wrapping our hook. This is the top of the stitch. I'm going to go into the first stitch that is by me, and I'm going to go from the top down into the stitch next to me, across from me, and I'm going to pull one loop up from the bottom, going through both of those and making a slip stitch into what was the loop on my hook. Now I'm going to go into that next side of, this is the foundation chain, so we can see all of our beginning chains. Go into the next foundation chain, going from the top to the bottom, going across from us in the next stitch down, both of those loops, pull a loop up, pull a loop up, and through. And so now you can start to see that stitch starting to form. And you just keep going, making sure you go the panel in front of us, then the panel across from us, and always going top down, top down. And then you keep doing this until the length of your seam is the desired number of inches. This also is what gets it up on your hand to where we start making that thumb opening. Once you get to the single crochets, you just kind of evenly space it, keeping the distance the same between your stitches. Again, remembering which side you're going in first, which side you're going in second, and making sure you insert your hook from the top of the fabric to the inside. So for me, that measures about right, and then I'm just going to pull that tail end through to secure, and I'll weave this end at the end. Now we're ready to do the similar thing, much similar, with the top portion. So again, I'm going to go have the loop on my hook. I'm going to go into the side by me first, and then I'm going to go across, and I'm going to go through the middle of the chain of that first double crochet, the chain 2 portion, and pull a loop through all of that and evenly work down this side of all the stitches, going from first the side closest to me to the side away from me. And again, we're going to seam this down the desired inch, and this will be the top portion where we stop for our thumb opening. So now we've gotten everything seamed up as far as we need to, what calls for the pattern directions, and we're ready to make this detail that goes around the thumb opening. We're going to chain 2 to get, again, our height up, pick up and double crochet along one side of the fabric, and then we're going to do a double crochet 2 together. And what that is 2 stitches coming together to form one. And what these do is it helps pull that shape up. Instead of it coming straight out, it tapers it up so that it forms around the shape of the thumb. It's way easier than it sounds. So we're going to chain 2 and turn. So I'm just coming around this side in front of me. Now I want to double crochet the number of stitches for my size, which for an adult small is 8, and it's just for this half of the fabric, so this portion in front of me, closest to me. But I want to make sure I leave enough room for one more double crochet at the end, and that's going to be our decrease stitch. So I'm kind of putting my thumb there. So this section here is where I need to create those 8 double crochets. Eight. So that's my 8. Now I want to double crochet 2 to make that stitch form close together. So I'm going to go in on this side and make a double crochet until I have those last 2 on my hook. But now I want to make the other portion of the second stitch. So I've wrapped the yarn, insert, pulled up a loop, go through 2 stitches, and now I want to pull through all 3 stitches on the loop, on the hook. So that creates the double crochet 2 together. So you essentially make just all of it except that last pull through of your 1 stitch, and then make a double crochet, and on your last pull through there's 3 loops instead of 2. All right, so now I want to finish those 8 double crochets on this side. All right, so once you finish your last double crochet, I'm going to go into that second chain of our turning chain, and I'm going to get those top 2 loops of that second chain, and I'm going to make a slip stitch, which is just pulling a loop all the way through both of them and pulling that tight so that it closes it shut. So that has started your thumb opening shape. Okay, so for this last round of the gloves, we're going to again chain 2 and turn. So now I'm working back along the other side, and I'm going to go into this first stitch that we made, and I'm going to double crochet 4. Sorry, looking at the wrong size. 7 in each of these first stitches. 3, 4, 5. 5, 6, 7. You'll notice I did not count the turning chain as a stitch this time. And I'm going to go ahead and make a double crochet 2 together. Okay, just as before. Now I'm going to finish double crocheting in the remaining stitches. When you get close, you can see how that itty bitty loop, that is from the slip knot of the row before. So I do not need to work in that one. So I have my last double crochet here. And then I'm going to go into the top again of my turning chain stitch, which is turned in. So I'm going to pick those 2 loops up. Having nails definitely does help. If you can't get into it, go ahead and just loop around the entire thing, pulling it straight through the loop on your hook and closing it tight. There it is. So at this point, I'm going to try it on. It fits like a glove. It pulls right up, so it's nice and form-fitting on my thumb. I still have a range of movement. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut this so I can pull that through to bind off. And the only thing I'm left to do is weave in these two ends. And one of the things I will do is tighten that little spot that I noticed where it kind of starts pulling with the double crochets. So I'm just going to work my way up through these stitches. And then loop right through. And that gives just a little bit of reinforcement to pull that tighter together. Just weave this in a little bit through my rounds and the rows. Kind of going this way, that way. And then we just have this one to do. Here we go. And there you have a wonderful set of fingerless glove mitts ready for those chilly mornings. Great for gifts, great for yourself. Now these are very easy to customize so that you can get a fit to your hand. If you notice, everybody's are a little bit different. This is just a standard size. Increase the rows of your half double crochets to get a wider cuff. Easily add in or subtract stitches to get a wider palm and a narrower cuff. Add or subtract rows to get it longer so it comes up higher or lower. I do know people in my family that have adult size hands, but they're very much smaller. I also had a friend who had very narrow hands and the palm was very long. So just adding or subtracting those single crochet rows can really help you get a fit to your palm size. Also, the length of where you seam can really shift that position of where the thumb is, so that can even be a more comfortable fit if you need to. So these are all just recommendations based on a template, standard size palm measurements of digits and how far everything is. No one is exact, no one's the same. So hopefully you can make something that is very comfortable for you, that you love to wear. Thank you for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this fingerless glove. Simple Steps Crocheted Glove Mitts. They're just so wonderful to wear. Hopefully I get to wear them and not my little ones, so may have to make some multiples. Let me know how many you end up making. Please be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss out on any other tutorials from City Farmhouse Studio. Thanks again. Bye.